Hi,
Yes.
everyone. Hey, welcome to another cheesy intro of digital transformation with SaaSy. We're actually going to keep that in. Why not?
Why
Um,
not?
anyone who's watched one or more of these has heard me say this a few times, but it's super relevant. We start with what digital transformation for us means, because it's such a broad topic, but we will focus on a very particular bit of that. For us, it means a business is using digital tools and technologies to streamline and improve its operations, create new products and services, or better meet the needs of its customers. So, layman's terms, putting in and using the right software. And we try and talk through some of those topics in our series, and get people to kind of learn some of the things that we have without having to go through them themselves, and save themselves some of the pain and trouble. Al, do you want to introduce yourself? Who are you? What do you do?
Who am I? What do I do? A question for the ages. So I'm Al Cattell. For the last 2.5 years, I have run effectively my own digital consultancy, helping companies do everything from build relatively standard websites through to prototype apps, set up data pipelines, that sort of thing. So today I have a small digital agency, I guess is the best way to describe it. And I think the thing that I'm most focused on at the moment, to be honest, and we can go into this as much as you want, but is really about how AI can be used to support some of that digital transformation activity that you want. So yeah, I'm sort of deep down an AI rabbit hole, for better or worse. So
what we're going to do with AI or something, like Chat GPT, cheat, whatever. We can cringe this right up. What's one thing everyone should know about you but probably doesn't know?
I don't know. I mean, it's always it's a good question. I have lived in 5 cricket test playing nations, so that may or may not impress some people. Some people may not even know how many test playing nations there are. There are 10, so that's half of them. It is Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, India, and the United Kingdom. Yeah. So next on the list is hopefully the West Indies, because that would be lovely, but it could be, Zimbabwe or something like that. Anyhow, there were. I'm trying to think. Bangladesh, Pakistan. So I'm open to it all. If I could get all 10, that'd be great. I think there's one I've missed off. But anyhow,
you can share about yourself.
My name is actually speaking of AI, my name is Al. Yeah. And that looks a lot like the word AI, which has become very confusing. So my name is actually Alistair. A lot of people call me Alan, which we can take or leave. But I might have to rebrand myself as Alistair, because Al in writing these days is just, it's like I'm calling myself AI. So yes, the other thing that I think not a lot of people know is that my name is actually Alistair, because for many years I've been Al. So there you go.
Oh.
As exciting as that is, there we go.
Oh. We were working together. That was at least once a day I was doing that out loud.
Alan. Could cut into the podcast. I'll just drop in that small meerkat segment of someone shouting Alan. That would be great.
Steve. Actually, what we had.
Steve. Yeah, Steve. Exactly. Anyhow, yes, so that's me. I'm very excited to be here today, Andre. So thank you.
What's your favorite app or tool, and why?
So it is, this may be predictable from some of the things I've just said, but actually at the moment, I live deep in OpenAI is ecosystem. I have changed my default tab on Chrome to be ChatGPT, but I don't actually use that as much as the OpenAI playground, where I do a lot of, I'm basically building a lot of small scripts to use AI to automate a whole bunch of work that I do. So yeah, I that's everything from coding things, marketing, planning, ideation, all sorts of stuff. So I don't use the AI that's in things like Notion or other tools, but actually that's very much my last 6 months has been deep in that space, and I absolutely love it. It's great. Has it started
giving back rather than just taking you down a really interesting rabbit hole yet?
So that's a good question. The what you get when you first play around with AI is like this amazing feeling that it's, oh my God, I just asked it to write a blog post around, I don't know, we both got some plants around plant care, right? And it'll do it. And you're like, wow, that's genuinely impressive. And then the more time you spend with it, the more disappointing it becomes. So there's this really weird like thing, right? Where you can, it's both simultaneously amazing and disappointing. And so where I've been trying to, as to your question, like is it giving back, is trying to work out the best way to kind of squeeze better results out of it. And a lot of that is about actually iterating and asking questions and talking to it. Sometimes you can go around for hours, down deep rabbit holes and then you forget what you've done. Then you come back the next day and you're like, what did I type to get that? Because that worked quite well. Or you reach the end of the day and you're a bit tired and you're like, yes, I've done something. And you come back the next day and you're like, this isn't any good. So I think where it's starting to pay off is to not just is to try and think about things in a bit more of a structured workflow, right? So you can use AI to say automate a bunch of steps in a process. So the thing I'm working on at the moment is a lot around generating marketing content. And so rather than just you use it to come up with ideas and then critique its own ideas and then write some synopses and then work those out. And so it's this multi-step thing. And when you get that to work well, it's really good. But it's actually a lot of building work to get that sort of system set up. Yeah. But yeah, it does. It's great. It's really good. But I think the other thing that I enjoy about it, to be honest, is there are no rules, right? There's no like correct way to do stuff. You kind of it tickles the part of my brain which is the kind of experiment and find out how things work part, which is I think really important to me from a enjoying my job kind of point of view. Is you get to experiment, you get to play, you get to be surprised, you get to try new things.
Yeah.
And that's really good actually, that it's still, I wouldn't say Wild West, but it's uncharted territory, right? And no one knows the best way to do things, and that makes it really exciting.
But even if they find a best way, there'll be another best way and another one.
Yeah, exactly. It really is like, I think I spoke to someone recently and they were like, no, I don't use AI because it's like the metaverse. Like 12 months ago, the metaverse, everyone was going to live in the metaverse in 12 months, and that's not happening. And it's all lies. And so crypto and Web3 was a big thing over the last couple of years. So I think there's been a lot of hype cycle, and I absolutely think AI is massively overhyped. Like if I see another how to use ChatGPT thread in Twitter or LinkedIn, I'll get a bit angry, flip my desk. But it doesn't mean it's going to be. I think it's going to definitely change the way we do work, way we do digital transformation, to be fair. But I do think it's overhyped. But where was I going with that?
I think.
But yeah, so yeah. Sorry.
It'll be every bit as revolutionizing, whatever, as the internet when it came out. This is going to be our life in however many years when it becomes mainstream. This isn't just another trend people have jumped on LinkedIn to talk about and generate content. It's not. Yeah, I fully appreciate the metaverse was the next big thing, and then it's already died. But this isn't that at all, I don't think.
No, exactly. I completely agree. And so part of the thing at the moment is to learn, and because back to the point about how there's no rules, the only way you can learn is really by being hands-on and trying things out. And that's again, who knows, in 5 years, I think there's there's this common maxim that's like, we overestimate the impact things will have in the short term and underestimate how they will impact us in the long term. And there's still definitely that case. Yeah. In 1 or 2 years, it probably won't be that different. 2030, I think there'll be whole job roles that have massively changed, because everyone will have an assistant, a digital assistant that can help them, be 10 times better. And that won't mean loss of jobs. Well, it will mean some jobs won't be as relevant. It will create more opportunities.
Exactly, but it will mean just is a vast understatement. It will mean retraining or reshifting priorities, and it will make certain things redundant, but it doesn't mean that it's just gonna, be a negative effect. It's going to be a ripple effect. Yeah,
absolutely, 100%.
Before we go back into the sort of the script I normally follow of the way I structure these chats, I must admit that I don't use it for coding, or haven't tried to automate anything with it yet, but I use it almost every day. It's one of the first tabs I open in the morning. Mine is ChatGPT. I've tried to just stick to the one that I started with without trying to try too many, because I have a whole slight tangent, but I have a whole list of different tools to try. One of them, a lot of them are AI based now, but one of them is to do with pitch decks. One of them is, I've never done the what's the one that, not Mind Garden, what's the one that
Midjourney for images. Yeah.
Seen a lot of them, never tried it, never logged on. So there's a whole list, but I just tried to focus on one thing that I know I can kind of consolidate and do better, and it will return more than take up my time in the short term. And one of the things that really surprises me still, it's been a nice reminder of the skills that we have that we don't really think about very much. So working on digital products, we have to be quite specific, otherwise, and this probably ties in with one of the things you're going to talk about soon, otherwise you're spinning your tail, you're going around in circles, you never get anything actually done. It's too muddy. So you can only be so specific, because it's still a very subjective area, which is where, real skill comes into translating technical with real world requirements and technical constraints and all of that sort of stuff. I don't pretend that I'm like some sort of, ChatGPT prompt guru or anything like that. The only thing I found is that just the way I happen to talk to it, because I see it as a conversation, and the prompts that I happen to give it, and the way that I structure the information I try and share with it versus what I want out, just seems to work for me, without going to every single LinkedIn carousel that I've seen that gives me, all the prompt cheat sheets and stuff like that, just because of the way that I naturally have to structure the information and the conversations in what I already do day to day. So it's been surprising that works already with a tool that I haven't, sort of sat there trying to work out the best way of using it and the best prompts and the best,
But even then, I mean, ultimately, it's a large language model, which is effectively statistically trying to work out what the next best word is to come out, right? So ultimately, actually, very subtle changes in what you say can have outsized impacts. So if certain words act like a marketing expert versus you are a marketing expert, I saw a whole thread of people arguing about which one of those two things gets better results. And then I try it and I don't see any results. And so any changes, differences. And so I think part of it is like, there's this underlying tool now that we end up just working out what works best for us and the way to use it best. So that's why I was saying, like, sometimes it's helpful to look at people's prompt guides or something like that. But ultimately, the best way to work it out is to just spend time trying to get the outcome that you want, right? Because that pitch deck or that product flow or whatever it might be, or that micro copy that you want to use holding in your website design, just using some random prompt somewhere, it probably isn't as good as spending a bit of time yourself just working through it. So, but it's fascinating. It really is fascinating.
Those cheat sheets or prompt guides has been giving me ideas of ways I never thought to use it, actually. So that's the thing that I found from those myself. So I think, coming back to the sort of the digital transformation topic, I absolutely am on board with you. I think that this is going to be, AI is definitely going to be a huge part of this in the next however many years. It's already becoming part of it. But if you and I can build an automation in with something like ChatGPT, maybe, the likes of Zapier are going to become redundant in a few years' time. Perhaps not. That's a whole different topic. But it could be so big that something that's so kind of been so key and fundamental in how we link different things or different tools up till now becomes a different ballgame entirely. But that's going to be in the future, not right now. So there's still quite a lot of lessons that we can take from projects that we've done so far without the likes of ChatGPT and the way that it's going to go. We were talking just before we started recording about one of your examples you were going to talk about. So this comes to when I prompt someone to share an example of a relevant project that did or didn't go well. So what's the sort of what's your one that you're going to talk about? What was the
end? I think so. I've been working in sort of B2B digital projects for like over 20 years, about 20 years. And one of the things when we used to work is it used to be an IT project. Technology was IT, so we'd go in and we talked with the IT team about like what all the software and all that sort of thing. And then especially with websites or stuff, you ended up leading with heads of marketing or heads of content for these, and we worked with a lot of big companies, right? And over the years, then you start not just using technology as like a communications platform, which it wasn't probably the naughty sort of thing, but it became like, okay, how do we offer a product or a service, or how do we improve the customer experience using digital technology, using apps, websites, automation, that sort of thing. And what became very common was people would still write the scope of that using a spreadsheet with a list of like, this software must do this, could do this, should do this, sort of that Moscow framework. So must have e-commerce. Now, what e-commerce means in an actual project is this massive breadth of thing, right? But people would try and procure something with a tick box that says, can it do e-commerce or something, right? And so a lot of these working with large enterprise businesses, we always would struggle to try to change the way they would think about executing their digital projects. And the way that, so rather than being particularly aligned to any particular software stack or anything like that, very much over the last several years, it's become being aligned to a philosophy, which is like, I think Google came up with this originally actually, but it's like always in beta. So when you build something digital, it's never finished, right? You can always improve it. You can always go back and change it. You can always add another page to your website. You can always redo the customer onboarding flow, for example. And so as soon as you start thinking about what you're building isn't going to be like the finished product, which in 5 years you're going to rip out and replace again, you can start thinking about building things in a really iterative way. And that's a really good, powerful way of doing it. But I find people still struggle to be able to align and work out what's that initial, how do I start the snowball down the hill? What's that first thing that I want to get going? And so we work with a large manufacturer in the aerospace industry who are trying to do a new customer portal. So historically, this is a classic digital transformation piece, right? The customer experience was like emails from a sales guy and then maybe a fax machine in a corner or something, even in this day and age, probably, or maybe, you never know, some weird website, and then it's a spreadsheet with some things. And, there was none of it was connected. And so the digital transformation piece was like, how do we give a single beautiful customer experience to the person who's just invested a lot of money in our aerospace technology? And they had this great idea, and it was well designed. They're good thinking. And what ended up was the project. They spent over 2 years without ever shipping anything. So there was something built, and there was a good front end built, and then it was like, okay, IT, we need these data APIs to feed in some information from the SAP or whatever the systems were, and they're like, well, that's going to take a while. And so what I think was a real shame about that was that it was an excellent project with an excellent product team on both the client side and the delivery side from their partners. But because nothing was ever shipped, after a certain amount of time, the people who were funding the project were like, why are we throwing more money at this? Especially in big companies, there was a change in leadership, and it was like, well, that's not my pet project anymore. Sack it off. We'll do something else. And so actually what was a really good digital transformation initiative with a great team still managed to fail because they were unable to align on a small MVP to maybe ship out to a few beta testers, get them on board, get them working, get some feedback, and actually be able to go back to the business and say, look, we've done something, we've proven something, we've made some inroads. And if only I think they'd done that, they would be sitting on top of this amazing change initiative in their business. It's much more efficient, much more attractive to their customers. But unfortunately, because they were never able to actually ship the product, it all got mothballed. And I think that would be a story that resonates probably with a lot of people in large organizations. And this is relevant to any size of business, right? If you can approach things, let's say you're using Zapier or HubSpot or I don't know, WordPress or I don't know, a custom React app or whatever it is, you may have in your mind like this beautiful vision of the future, and the real skill is being able to pare back what really matters to a small initial launch MVP, whether it's a private beta or anything else, and get that out and get people using it and build on top of it from there. So sorry, I went on for a bit there, but that was
lots of things that I'm hearing, and I don't think we've got capacity to talk about all of them, I suppose, because this is just the geeky part of me that kind of goes, oh my goodness, this is my sort of day-to-day. This is exactly the sort of things that we help with, that we add value with, and that's not the point of this conversation at all. So a few relevant points there. I think the first thing that I ever really heard that was super relevant, Zoom's just telling me that we've got 10 minutes, and do I want to pay extra? Sometimes, sure, but actually the time limit is really
not for you, Al, not for you, Alistair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The main thing that one of the really relevant things that I learned really early on in software that still I hear in my head at least once a week is someone can build the most beautiful, perfect software or tool or amazing anything, right, product. If no one sees it or no one uses it, pointless. It can be as beautiful as it wants to be. And exactly what happened there, it sounds like it was a fantastic, well thought out initiative with lots of really great, both customer facing and business wins, the right impact to the right people. But if it never saw the light of day, and that's because it sounds like they didn't work out exactly what MVP, minimum viable product, should be. The milestones that go behind it. Yes, even in Agile, you can still have milestones and decide what it looks like and what you're trying to work towards, and that they didn't really approach it in a more suited Agile way to do exactly that, to do a big thing like that in an iterative way that actually took on not just customer feedback, but also the internal teams that would have been using it as well, to then iterate it rather than just guess for 2 years or however long it went as to what people would need and want, and it will change in those 2 years. It can't not moves, but make a best guess at it, and then it never goes anywhere. And it's frustrating for everyone, not just the finances that were thrown at it, but also like if you like working on something like that and can see the value and the benefit. To me, that's inherently frustrating because like it could have gone somewhere really good and could have genuinely changed people's working life for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I mean, this is an example from a very, very large organization where people are inherently risk averse, and if anything goes wrong, they don't want to be the ones with the sign on their back saying that was Al's fault or whatever, right? And I think that's really inherently challenging big companies. But if you can frame your thinking around like how are we going to stop things? You want to stop things going wrong, but like, what are the small wins we can get right along the way? And part of that, might be before you decide on what software stack to get, is just to actually just like come up with a really simple example of what outcomes you want to get and prioritize how you might do it. Anyway, again, this is stuff that you know well, but it's like, I think that the important thing is, even though the example's from a big company, if you work in a small, medium-sized sort of business, and you can take that, the one thing is like, can we just get something? Can we get one step further along the path to our end goal? That is more powerful than however many procurement managers doing however many sense checks about whatever. It's just like, can we actually just make a little bit of progress along the way? Because you get to show that to the rest of the business.
But I think something,
and get buy-in and that sort of thing.
Oh, I thought you finished your
No, sorry, go on.
Something that I'm definitely relearning recently as well is show, don't just tell is really powerful, because you can have all the status updates that are honest and upfront and whatever, but it's show, don't just tell is powerful internally. It's powerful to the people that sponsor it. And we're not talking about, it doesn't have to be an organization of 7,000 for that to be true. It can just be your colleagues that can hear you talking about something but never actually see anything, so they don't always get it. They don't always see the value until they see it for themselves, and that's genuinely a really powerful thing. But it's the same with the customer stuff. Anything that's customer facing or anything like that, it's one thing, and this goes off into a different tangent that we won't unpick, but it's the what you think you're going to get versus what you actually get when you see it. It's also that.
Yeah.
How quickly can you catch that before it goes too far down the wrong path? But yeah, okay. So we've done a good few of these, you know, what can others learn from that before they start on their own digital roller coaster? Anything else that, any other top tips for people that might be doing that, small organizations or large ones that can learn from?
I think, you know, in some ways that kind of my key thing I probably have wrapped up in the story I've just said there, which is this like this approach things like they'll never be finished, and you'll always have a chance to improve them and tweak them and adjust them, and just having that like launch and iterate kind of mindset is far more valuable than almost anything else, right? So I would say, yeah, that's the main takeaway. That's the main thing. I think there's lots of other little sort of nuances around how to, you know, get IT and marketing and product all working together, which is a challenge, and I think not an easily solved one. But I think if it's that launch, learn, iterate is the way to do digital, is the way to do digital transformation, and is the way to get the best results, I think.
I like it. Last one. What's your favorite? And you can't be talking about AI on this one because that's cheating. What's your favorite hack or pro tip you wish you'd known 3 years ago?
I mean, 3 years ago wasn't that long ago in some ways. I feel, and if I'm not allowed to use AI, I actually think that one thing that really struck out to me, which took me a while to learn, was that Google isn't successful because of the way it looks. It's successful because they give you the best results, or they used to before they shanked everything with all the advertising. Uber isn't successful because they've got a nifty app. It's because there's always a car outside your door that's ready to pick you up, right? So the user experience part, when people think about things, I think there's a difference between the user interface, which is how things look and how, you know, people interact with your app or your product, and the user experience, which is like, I want to get you from, in the Uber's case, get you from A to B. And so actually, when you're thinking about digital transformation, and humans are very visual animals, and we look at things and we use the way things look to kind of judge things. Mm-hmm. Actually, the really successful companies, businesses, change initiatives, actually deliver a user experience that isn't all about the digital user experience. It's about the actual, what are we trying to do for people? And so whenever I think about things now, it's very much trying to remind myself of that Google example, where it doesn't really matter how it looks, right? It matters that I can find, when I type in digital transformation, blah, it gives me actual useful results, right? That's the user experience. And whatever you're trying to work on, I think if you can have that mindset of like, what is the job to be done? What's the problem we're solving? What are we actually doing? That will set you up to be more likely to succeed.
I now will not take on or work on any project without a user experience, user interface, a UX UI designer, which is super, super key for so many different reasons to the end result. You have to start it in the right way at the right time, not pretty design stuff, because that's exactly that, bells and whistles. Yeah. Obviously, you know, it's got its place, it's got its value, but that's not what it's all about. And I think you've just queued up the next interview, which was already going to be Hayley, but it's such an important topic, and it's such an misunderstood one so far, because the people hear the word designer and they think pretty stuff, which isn't it at all.
Yeah.
Much more than that. It's about user research. What do they want? Like, it's such a big topic, but I'm gonna enjoy picking Hayley's brains in a lot more detail about that, I think.
Yes, very good. Well, look at that, perfect.
Yes, let me stop the recording. Thank you so much for chatting with us today. Much appreciated and super interesting, at least for me anyway. I'm biased.
Well, hopefully. We'll see. Smash the like and subscribe button. Isn't that what YouTubers say? Yeah.
We don't have one, but we'll just whack it on the screen.